Well, we can get started then. I think everybody is on, that we're our guests that's going to be on. So welcome everybody. My name is Zach Smith. I'm the product and training specialist at Growers. Uh, the call tonight is we're gonna be featuring Steven Streck, who is a salesman under Dave Armstrong for us in Missouri, and Daniel Wolf, who's a salesman for us again under Dave in Wisconsin. We're gonna be talking about the January picture in the 2024 calendar, um, but more specifically, how that plays out in the field. So at shortly, I will share, probably after Jim does his part. I'm going to screen share a photo of that picture so that anybody who's on a smartphone or a laptop or computer can see it. There's quite a bit of writing there that's helpful. But there might be a few other things that we cover as well with Steve and Daniel. We'll have a period for questions. If you have any, please ask them. Unmute yourself, *6 if you're on a dial-up, and just a microphone button if you're on a smartphone or a computer. Just like we've been doing the past few years, we're not going to be continuing this call year round. And so we'll do it. We're doing it now. We'll do it in February, March, and April, but then we'll take a break in May, June, July, and August. And that's just because we don't have a lot of people coming on during those months just because they're so busy. And so we decided just to not have them at all, and then it'll start back up in September. So be sure to tune in when we do have them. I try to keep them interesting, varied, and have a lot of good information covered. They're also recorded, and Russ will place them on the website, so you can listen to them after the fact. You can send the links, I believe, to anybody that wants to see them or listen to it, I mean. And so just so you guys know. Okay. I think we're ready to get started then. Jim, are you ready to go?
Yeah, I'm ready. Zach, can you hear me all right?
Yep, I can.
Okay. You're ready?
Yep.
Yeah, my name is Jim Hallbeisen. I'm Director of Research. I start the conference call each time, and we talk a little bit about current events. My job with the company is to present educational seminars, and we've been doing that since November. And this last week, I was with Mike Bolsher in Kentucky, and then we had some contacts up in Ohio. Got a young guy just started with us here a couple seasons, raising 4 acres of flowers. And after we met with him, he was very pleased with what he's seeing, wants to learn more about the total program, try to improve vigor, hold blooms longer, make his customers happy. So very interesting. We didn't have any, he was kind of strapped on, so we didn't get a chance to get into his greenhouse, but very interesting conversation. Very, very aggressive young guy. It'll be kind of interesting to see how that thing works out. Zach, any of those pictures that Chris and I emailed to you, you can throw them up anytime you want. I'll just
give me a minute.
That's fine. I'll diverge from what I'm talking about as Zach puts them up there. What these pictures are pictures from guys we worked with. Chris was with me the first week when we were in Missouri with Jerry Stutzman. And then we've got some in there from Keith Shudd up in North Dakota, spreading limestone on snow. I thought they would have some interest for you guys to take a look at. The other thing that I want to talk a little bit about, and Zach will be throwing the calendar picture up there, which is really the, kind of the focus of the call. The idea that total solubility or hot mix growers being a true solution in its ability to resolubilize. We feel that's going to be a big issue in 24. Large parts of the area we work in, which extends from the Dakotas, to northern Florida, and we get up the East Coast and over in the Mississippi. lot of dry areas. The south is getting some rain now, and the snow and the rain we're getting in the Midwest, some of that's improving, but they're saying that we're going back into a La Nina pattern here in 24. The El Nino is going to break quickly, go back to La Nina, which could put us back into a dry spell in the heart of the Corn Belt. And again, what we tried to demonstrate with the picture that Zach will show you when he puts up there is that we can resolubilize the growers after it's been dehydrated. And that's going to be a very big factor. And this is something, there's a lot of articles appearing in the popular press now about the dry weather and how areas are trying to recover. So again, this is something that we thought would be very helpful with this particular call. As some of the other things, there's a tremendous amount of work going on now, microbiological. And that's taking over a lot of the popular press. Even the scientific websites are discussing microbes and how they function in agriculture. And this is something that we started discussing back in 2010. We felt it's something we discussed from the beginning, but there was really no interest in it because there was very little knowledge about it. And with the immunotherapy becoming very, very important in human medicine, more research went in that direction. And so the different things that they're seeing with microbes, for example, in March, we are going to discuss placing growers at a 2x2 position as well as the in-furrow position. And if you have received a calendar, if you look at that March calendar, at those roots that come out of the germinating seed and how they're bending to the 2x2 position. And we'll show you that in March to give you some ideas about how that's working. We've done various types of research on that. The winter solution that's coming out, there'll be a discussion about that, which we think it's got real potential. As some of our larger operations found foliar feeding to be a challenge. They wanted to put on more product, but they didn't want it all in the furrow. So we did some work with the 2x2. We've got some guys that have done it for a fair number of years now and have had nice success with it. Well, when you look at those pictures and how the root bends towards the 2x2, the customer that we took the picture with said, what's going on here? How does the plant know that, or how does the seed know that? And some of the research that they're demonstrating microbiologically are showing that there's gases emitted by both the plants and the microbes themselves. And see, with the amount of porosity you have in soil, those gases are able to diffuse in both directions. And they say this is really how the plants and the microbes interact with each other through these various gases. And so again, that they also say some fluid exchange happens right next to the root, but to see the movement that far, the gaseous exchange makes a lot of sense. And so this is something that explains some of the things, that we're seeing or have seen in the past to try to help our customers. A lot of questions in the field about prices. A big question is availability too. This week, a lot of our Kentucky vegetable guys that haven't done anything yet as far as fertilizer purchasing, they're very concerned about availability. Their local co-ops are telling them there's plenty, but then there's some discussion about of availability for delivery and that type of thing. So again, our issue is nitrogen has come down very significantly. Potassium has come down maybe 30%, 25%, but phosphorus has only come down about 15 to 18%. And again, that matches up with what we've done. But this availability thing, guys, is with the phosphorus fertilizer can be an issue. And, in the past, farmers have said, all I need is nitrogen. I can get by without P&K. And with these newer hybrids, more intense vegetable growth, this tends to backfire over a long-term period. So again, we're not trying to tell anybody you got to get busy, but availability still could be an issue. The wars seem to have cooled down at this point, but these Houthis that are creating quite a problem in the Red Sea as far as shipments. They're even saying that the Ukraine may have some problems getting their crops out of there. Other than with the Russians, that may be an added factor there, and that's going to be part of the commodity issue as far as prices are concerned. So, and by the way, there's a big report that comes out tomorrow, the January one. They predict production, and they predict the amount of exports that are occurring. They're going to report on the production in Brazil. They've been very dry. They've been getting rain lately. That's what's really kind of deflated corn and beans over Christmas and then here in the first part of the year. But we've seen in the past where the January report has been a mover. It's made it go down, but in some years it's helped it immensely. So again, I think to see what your marketing prices are tomorrow could be a big report. So again, that's just something that guys are trying to pay attention to. Another thing that we're seeing is with this cattle market and the numbers supposedly being down, this is supposed to be negative to usage on corn and beans as far as bean meal are concerned to a certain degree. And so the issue with biofuels, with the Biden administration allowing, carbon credits with the sustainable aviation fuel, that's going to be an issue as far as helping corn prices and bean prices because they're using both in jet fuel, both bean oil and ethanol. And the approval of that for the credits, that'll keep this export volume. The production of ethanol has kind of waned a little bit as the price of gas has come down. But again, as it gains a little traction in certain parts of the country, again, the ethanol production has jumped back up again. And see, once they start putting this in aircraft, and it's all for carbon control, guys, basically. They're saying that emissions from these jet engines goes down quite significantly with biofuels. And with the struggle with the electrical vehicles as far as cars are concerned, that will basically keep that demand for ethanol fairly strong. There's been a push to jack it to 15% of the chain, but that's met a little bit of resistance by the oil companies. So again, the usage on corn should stay, fairly decent. And again, that really kind of underlines, corn price per se. There was one article that I caught, which was kind of important when we were in Missouri with Jerry Stutzman. Jerry's been working with a biochar product down there, trying to do various things with it. And we're starting to see more discussion about charcoal or biochar per se. And Texas A&M basically was looking at it from a standpoint of improvement in the soil. In other words, it's a carbon product, and see all this discussion from fulvic acid to humic acid to sugars that you're adding to bug in the jug or to soil to invigorate biological life. The biochar is just a carbon product. And the contention is that it's one that the biological life uses quite readily. The other issue with it is the structure of the biochar also improves porosity in the soil, which is very beneficial to the microbes. So you're getting a matrix effect out of it, plus the feeding effect out of it. And why it's gotten traction when it's basically a replacement for fertilizer has been interest outside of agriculture as a remediation of waste. The waste problem is becoming monumental, guys. Biosolids, they've been advertising or trying to get farmers to use that for years and years. There's been a lot of struggles with it. EPA regs are we saw fields in the Delmarva Peninsula of Maryland that used the regulation volumes that EPA suggested and basically sterilized the field. But the situation with this biochar is the people that Jerry Stutzman's working with contend that it is very, very critical the temperature that you elevate these waste products to, and the type of waste product that you're using to make the biochar is a big factor too. They're working with wood chips, sawdust, that type of thing, but the Texas A&M research discussed the use of human biosolids as a source of biochar. And again, the discussions that we've had said that this is a possibility. However, the effectiveness of it is not as significant as if you use a clean product like a wood chip or wheat straw, something on that order. But again, that's why there's such interest in it, because the interest outside of agriculture is huge to try to deal with these wastes. And one of the biggest waste problems, guys, is plastic. And it's, you and I think about plastic bottles. There's been some articles on Google here recently about plastic pieces in bottled water and that type of thing. But one of the things that we've encountered talking with the wastewater industry is plastics in human and women's cosmetics. It's huge. Dave Armstrong, who's not on tonight, he said WHO had a woman biochemist on talking about this accumulation of plasticity in this makeup. And her concern was using it on young women. This plastic is basically penetrating the dermis or the epidermis of these young girls. Her contention is these women get older and the skin gets leatherier, more leathery appearance. The penetration isn't as bad. But with these young women, it's basically penetrating into their epidermis, and they think in the future it's going to cause serious problems. But the thing that got Dave's attention was they talked about washing this off in the evening and when it goes into the wastewater. And there's been several articles on the scientific websites about plasticity going in the soil through waste products. And see, theoretically, these biochar people are saying that's just a hydrocarbon, that if you burn that at the correct temperature, you'll drive that carbon complex back to CO2 and water, which is the original form. And see, in human waste, you've got antibiotics, you've got plasticity in some of the antibiotics people are consuming. And in some cases, the plastic is too dense and is not being digested by the human, and it's just being excreted into the waste pool at that point. So this idea that they're going to try to use this burning method to try to lower these waste streams, that's gained a lot of momentum. And then the idea is that you make biochar, turn around, sell it to the farmer, and he cuts back on fertilizer. So again, you can see that research on that is going to be impeded at the university level. Actually, this Texas A&M article was written by the horticulture department. It wasn't written by agronomy. So there will be pushback on that, I believe. And where we're at with it at this point, I don't think anybody really has a handle on that per se. We just are trying to be as articulate as we can. We know Jerry's working with it. We'll try to keep you apprised of what he's seeing. He's got customers that are using it now to try to trap ammonia in chicken buildings. We've got several customers in the growers network that have some interest in that. Jerry's contention is that once you get it in the bedding or in the scratch area, lowering the ammonia improves the production of the animal. He's got better oxygen. They breathe better. They produce better. And we've got several guys that have worked with it that say they're getting better production. They're not so sure it's changing the ammonia, but they said their waste is totally different. And the reaction to the waste is totally different. So, and these guys are older growers, guys that are very observant. So something's going on with this thing. We don't know what the real answer is, but we'll try to keep apprised on it and be articulate on it. And if you have any, knowledge of this or hear about it, I had a customer from Georgia. NRCS is suggesting to these guys, to use biochar. It's kind of interesting, though. They want them to use high calcium lime with it at the same time. And see, Jerry is quite aware of that. He went at it that way to begin with. He's got some test plots in there, the biochar and the lime by itself, either or. And then with the combination, he's not seeing any yield production or improvement, but the deer are eating in that area definitely compared to the other two areas. So again, that's a good biological test. So again, we aren't promoting it. We're just trying to be articulate with it. A couple other small things that are going on in the the winter edition of the solution, which some of you may have, but we'll discuss it more in February. Zach does a real nice job of the 2x2 research that Matt Gooding did. Take a look at that. We've got old articles that we refer to in the articles that are in the winter edition, talking about yield improvement just with growers in the 2x2 position and remove the nitrogen. So again, we think that's got some real merit, and we'll try to discuss it in detail when you've got it so you can take a look at it at the same time. Another article that appears in there that we think will be very helpful is a gentleman by the name of Mulvaney from the University of Illinois, and a lot of our older sales force are familiar with Dr. Mulvaney. He and Saeed Khan made a couple presentations at the annual meeting discussing too much nitrogen application. Khan was talking about the excessive application of potassium, and he did write several articles that went to the scientific press. We modified those and published them in the solution. We thought it was very good research. But Dr. Mulvaney and a grad student who is now at North Dakota State, they radioactively tagged nitrogen and then applied it to a corn crop. And they used various ways. They used 28, they used urea, they used anhydrous. And then what they did was follow the radioactivity of the N15 going into the plant. So at the end of the season, when they harvested, they measured the radioactivity in the plant to see how much of the nitrogen that was in the plant and the protein complex came from the fertilizer or came from the soil. And very interesting research. The article will discuss it in detail. And if you guys want to wade through the scientific papers, talk to Dr. Mulvaney. He's just a great guy. He sent those to me. I've got them. But basically, his conclusion is that on average, 67% of the nitrogen that is in the corn plant, in the kernel and in the green structure of the plant, 67% of that came from the soil. Only 33% at best, in many cases, came from the fertilizer. And the article is geared to tell farmers, hey, you've got to get this biological enlivened to take advantage of what's in the atmosphere. 79% of what you're breathing right now, guys, is N2 gas. If you can harvest any of that and get it into the biological complex and transfer it to the plant, that's just a huge savings for you. And we will be probably bringing Dr. Mulvaney to the annual meeting next year. We always like to have this outside research where they are talking about things that pertain to what we've talked about for years. And again, Dr. Mulvaney said to me, he says, yeah, Jim, I should have made sure we had good calcium on those fields, but we just didn't have control of it. So again, that 67% might be low if you're doing a good job of putting on high calcium lime. And see, a lot of our growers, customers, they've realized that for years. Get the lime on, the high cal lime, cut the nitrogen, still very competitive yield wise. One last point I'd like to make before I turn it back to Zach. I got a text this morning from Keith Shutt up in North Dakota. And what it was is an article that appeared in Corn and Soybean Digest. And the title of the article was Carbon, Oxygen, and Hydrogen Fertility in Corn Production. And what they're saying is that they say 94% of the corn plant is carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. The research I've looked at is 96, but we aren't going to quibble about 2%. And see, their whole point is that you can use a tremendous amount of fertilizer, but if you don't get the sunlight, air, and water right, you've got a problem. And again, we think it's very simple that when you're raising corn, what are you doing? You're trapping energy from the sun, turning it into a chemical, sugar. And again, you guys all are very articulate with Google. Just Google composition of sugar on Google. C12H22O11. That's what you're selling. Whether it's a kernel of corn, whether it's a hunk of watermelon, whether it's part of an alfalfa leaf, it's all the same thing, guys. And see, the article is stressing that you've got to get the soil functioning correctly to take advantage of the fertility that you use. And that's something that we talk about all the time. You know, Ferry has been talking about these density layers in Farm Journal in these soils, and he's trying to remove them with vertical tillage or ripping or mechanical tools, which can be done. But we're saying any clay or organic matter that is not flocculated, that'll seal right back together, and you're basically stopping that porosity in the soil. And that's a key factor in order to get good production. And so Keith said in his text, he says, hey, Jim, I think they slept through part of the presentation on this thing because they started talking about how important the fertility was again and kind of circumventing, you know, the sunlight, air, and water. And see, it's not the right narrative, in my opinion. So again, it's just two things. It kind of substantiates what we're trying to do at growers, and then our network doesn't miss anything. So you guys that are looking at us for the first time, that's part of the deal when you come into the network. You do business with us, you got access to it. You can talk to other guys that are doing what you're doing, or they can give you some ideas of things they've tried. We think that's a very important part of our business. And so I try to help all new guys with that. You want to know something about this, that, or the other thing? We got a guy that I feel has got a lot of expertise with that. They'll be glad to talk to you because we feel that's a very important part of our network. So I guess, Zach, that pretty well covers all the current events and what we've been looking at. And if anybody's got any questions before we head over to the calendar, and the two gentlemen that are going to be on the line tonight, they're salesmen for David Armstrong. I'll be working with Steve this week in Missouri. We've got a meeting in Iowa before we go down to Stevens, and we'll be working with those guys down there. He'll tell you what the weather was like and what their struggles were. And then the following week, I'll be working with Bob Hovert and Nelson Weaver, and then I'll be working with Daniel Wolf. So again, we'll have access to these guys, and they're both, we feel, excellent farmers. I've been on their farms. They do a good job. We think they speak well of our organization. So I think that'll be a very interesting discussion. She's all yours, Zachy.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it. Can you guys see the January calendar picture? I'm screen sharing. I want to make sure it's working.
Yes, it's very.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Perfect. Yeah, so this will be part of what we discuss. I'm not going to read the whole thing there. Those of you with screens can read it as I talk, but basically one of the characteristics that really sets growers apart from other liquid fertilizers, excuse me, is the hot mix. And that's what this is demonstrating here is as a result of the hot mix, even if growers is dried out, it goes easily back into solution. So you'll notice there it says that he only, after it had been dried out and he added water, he only had to turn the tube 10 times and the growers went back into solution. So it didn't require a lot of heat and it didn't require a lot of agitation. This is because of the strong crystalline structure that's created as a result of the hot mix. The significance of this is twofold. One, what happens when a liquid dries out in the soil? If there's no rain after planting, the soil dries out. They're going to look like the pictures on the left. They're going to dry out as well with liquid fertilizer you put on, and plants directly can only absorb fertilizer salts in a liquid form. And so you're not getting nearly as much utilization of that fertilizer in a dry form. And so then once you do get moisture, what's happening in that soil? The growers, considering that Matt only had to turn this 10 times, that is a minuscule amount of agitation required to get that growers back into solution. And so the growers in the soil, we believe, is going to do the same thing. Versus a non-hot mix solution, you can clearly see there that it suspended, it's murky, but then the picture on the right, it settled back out and you're just left with now a yellowish water and most of that fertility laying on the bottom, not resolubilizing. The second benefit of this is the uniformity of the nutrients. And so that's, as it says in the little written portion down there, people care quite a bit about that when you're giving nutrients to cattle or to livestock of any sort. But they tend not to care about it so much when you're spraying that on your plants. And now for NPK, maybe it's not as big of a deal, but as soon as you start adding micronutrients in, they're in such small amounts and you're spreading it over such a large area, or spraying it, over such a large area, that you're not getting even distribution of those micronutrients. However, because of the hot mix with growers and the solubility of it, every drop of growers contains the same ratio of nutrients. And so you can be confident that wherever you spray it, you're getting every bang for your buck. And so we brought on Stephen Streck and Daniel Wolf. Stephen, I believe, in Missouri, has had some dry spells there. So Stephen, you can pipe up if I'm wrong there.
No, we were the target of the driest spot in the state.
Pardon?
We were the driest spot in the state this year. We lacked most of our rain never consisted over a couple tenths at a time for the whole summer. We had one rain that was over a half inch.
Wow. How much rain did you get then from planting until the end of the summer?
Ooh, I'd have to go back and follow up, but I'd have to go back to the chart that the FDA put out for us or whatever, talking about our pastures and everything else, because we were like 6 or 7 inches behind for sure. And we got one good rain in the first week of August, I believe it was, right there at the end of July, August. But that was the only thing that we had that was over a half inch. Everything else was, we could have measured with a thimble almost all year long from the time we planted.
Wow. How did your crops do then?
My crops done exceptionally well in my bottom. I mean, I had some corn that made 220, and I had some stuff up on some white ash ground that was just very marginal soil that still made close to 100, but the overall average was 159. and I had a lot of guys here around me that didn't have 30 and 40 bushel corn. So I consider myself lucky. I brought on a new customer this year, and he went from being a 300 or 400 acre farmer to almost 1,000. He went all in with us this year, and he raised the best crops with the least amount of inputs he said I've ever done. This is crazy to see this, and he's on board for this year again. He said this is the best he's ever had anything, and even his landlords told him the same thing. We can't believe our crops with no more moisture than we had.
Yeah.
So they were very, very pleased with the results, and it's bringing on more of his neighbors now. They're like, we want to see more about this stuff.
I'm guessing that he didn't use any limestone either, did he?
He put on 2 ton on what he could get across early in the spring, getting started, but he's got a lot of ground that he, like I said, landlords, it was very rough ground, and he is right now stockpiling as much lime in the field as he can get on to get by spring to up his lime or his calcium saturation by next year. He's a firm believer now that this is the way we got to go. You know, he learned a lot. He was down last time, and he listened a lot, and he said, we got to take a chance and see if we can do this. And he goes, on paper, it was the best year financially he's ever had because he put the least amount of inputs in and had the biggest return on his investment. So he's really happy with that.
That's what matters. What do you credit the relative success with then?
I think the high calcium lime, I've been with them, 8 to 10 years now. Started out in my bottom, and I had a agronomist come out and look at the place when I bought it. They said, this place is terrible. And the old farmer I bought it from, he just passed away January 3rd of last year. He was 97 years old, and all he ever did was disc it and plant it and put the bare minimum of fertilizer on it. And my first year, it killed us trying to rip the soil to get some lime down in it. We were trying to speed up the saturation of calcium down in our soil. And I put on about 6 tons so far, 2 ton every other year, trying to build up to the 10 ton lime that I want to get to. But this year, in some of that ground, I could run 6.5 mile an hour, 13 inches deep with a 6-shank inline ripper and a 200 horse tractor, which is phenomenal when I started out at 4 miles an hour. I mean, it's really loosened the soil up. I think you need the air in there, and with the air, you get the moisture down, and it just gives your roots places to go. We've done some root digs in my bottom, and they really go down, and that's what I think is the key to it, get the root to tap down.
Yeah. That's what the growers program often builds is resiliency in rough years. You can coast kind of on that soil health that you've built.
Well, I sent Jim a picture this year. I foliar fed my beans when they were under their worst stress. And what I was showing him in it is I still had 5 pod sets per node going up my beans, except for the last 3 or 4. That was at the very end of the season. But the idea that I held the blooms, it was up to Mother Nature to fill them pods, but the pods were there.
Mm-hmm.
And the beans averaged at high 50s. So I was happy. They wasn't the best beans I ever raised, but considering the situation, we were hoping for 35. So we did way better than expected.
Hey, Stephen, this is Jim Hallbison. I want you to describe your soil for guys. They're thinking, wow, Missouri is close to Iowa. It's probably flat, black, good dirt. So discuss what kind of soil you have, in the bottoms, and then what you got up on the ridge too. So
we've got a lot of clay-based soil, and a lot of it is not very thick, and it's real easy to get to the hard pan in that. In the bottoms, you'll find some veins of good soil, but it's nothing close to Iowa soil. I mean, our county average, I think, on corn now is up to 130 at best, and our beans are I think 33 is what the county average is. So if you can beat the county average, that's what we do for our proof yield. That's what we're going for. And there's a few of us are getting there, but these guys are just learning how to play with clay. They just don't understand. You've got to get the calcium in it to flocculate that soil and get that air down there. And I think that's the biggest factor we got to get into these guys. And Luke, the guy I was talking about that had his best year ever, he's got a lot of clay-based soil. And I mean, that stuff is as hard as asphalt out there when we first started this year. And he said, I've already seen a big difference in the first year. He goes, I can only imagine as I keep adding to it how much better this is getting. And his landlords are like, you do what you want, because our yields are way better than they were with the previous guys that were farming this place. So they're letting him go ahead and put the lime to it.
So, hey, Stephen, I want you to talk a little bit about your approach when you put the high cal lime on. You know, we're working with guys that, you know, they want to no-till. Keith Shutt's got some, you know, guys there in North Dakota. They want to stick with the no-till, and Keith is always desperate to tell guys, look, get some air in there when you get that lime on. He says you don't have to go to China with it, but get some air in there. What's your feeling on that?
I like to do the inline rip because I think when it rains on the calcium on top of the soil, it goes down in them cracks and helps speed up the process to get it down in the ground. Even if it's only 6 or 8 inches deep, it's way better than just laying on top if we're only going to move it an inch per year. You know,
Right.
10 years of my life is time to try to speed up this porosity to get it broke down and get my soil loosened up like I wanted to do and help open up where my microbes can get some oxygen to breathe.
Steve, you
I
had said
agree.
you're also in your planting in furrow, you're also adding in humic acid. Could you explain what that is and why you're using it, please?
It's basically a sugar, and I just have always used it, and I thought it'd be a good additive to throw in with our product to just to stimulate the microbiology in the soil with a little bit of that sugar, the humic acid with our product. And I put on 5 gallon in furrow with a 30,000 to 33,000 plant population on my corn. And my beans, I don't plant over 140,000 at 2.5 gallon, but I actually putting on 5 gallon, I dilute it with water. So it's 2.5 gallons of growers and 2.5 gallons of water, and putting on about 1 to 2 quarts of humic acid with it. And I just think getting my plant started strong is the best thing. And, you know, like they say, once a runt pig, always a runt pig. Well, if your plants start off strong, I think they can endure the weather like last year a lot better, because mine never showed no real heat stress, might you say, in them. Everywhere that I was at, I look at stuff almost daily, and I look at stuff at my neighbors literally 100 yards away and just compare the difference in it. And it's night and day difference. And they all want to know what you're doing, but they don't want to do the work to get it because it's good enough for them. It's just rented good. You know, that's the way they a lot of times look at it. I'm striving for excellence. You know, I want to get up where I've raised 70-some to 72 bushel beans, and I've raised 310 bushel corn, but it ain't every year. It's just everything's got to hit just right.
Yeah.
And I think this is the way to keep it up there, even though, and I don't put over 140 pounds anhydrous on. That's my limit. I will not put any more than that. I don't even like putting that much on, but the industry says you ain't putting enough on. They want me to put over 200 on. And I said, I'm not doing it. I'd like to back it down to 120 and just try to foliar feed one more time across the top if my crop needs it. You know, just, you got to read your crop. You can go out and look at it.
Mm-hmm. Excuse me. Daniel, are you there?
All right, got muted again, I guess. Got me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
We got you,
All
buddy.
right.
Have you got anything you want to add so far?
No, I'd say Stephen gave a good report on what same method I go at it. So
Well, hey,
yeah,
Daniel,
I'd
this is Jim
say,
Hallbison. This is Jim Hallbison. You ain't gonna get off that easy. I want to know
right.
what kind of farm, and tell these guys, you know, that struggle finding high cal lime. That's kind of a problem you've got, and what you're trying to do to work with that, and how you try to incorporate as much as you can without breaking the bank.
Sure. Well, so on the lime availability issue, Jim's right on. We're here in southwestern part of Wisconsin, and to my understanding, there isn't any high calcium limestone in Wisconsin, so it all has to be brought in from another state. You can go west or you can go east to get it. So trucking is costs more than the product. So I guess here on our operation, I don't want to focus on one field or 20% of the farm, let the other 80% slide down the drain, not doing anything to it. So we've been spreading 400 to 500 pounds of high calcium every year. It seems, I should say, on our good ground. If we have something that we just got or that's run down, we'll put a couple ton on and then continue with the 400 or 500 pounds after that. And just that 400 or 500 pounds seems to help, get seed germination started better. Gives us an uptick. Sometimes we'll blend gypsum with our high cal to for our sulfur source. We've had issues where alfalfa starts getting yellowing leaves in the lower canopy, and put a couple 100 pounds of gypsum out there with our high cal lime, and next crop it's gone. The yellowing's gone. I think that the year I definitely documented it in my mind. We had one rain after I applied that 500 pounds on it, so it solubilized really quick, and 30 days later we had more hay than we had the crop before. So in our corn, Jim always was telling me I consider myself a no-tiller. Jim always was telling me you gotta get air in the soil, and then I'd have a field issue, and the agronomist I'd have look at it, he said, well, you just need a one-shank cultivator and run down through the middle, and it'd be dark green tomorrow. And so, but he'd always say, you know as good as me, we can't do a lot in these hills. So anyway, it's called an airway now. So we're basically poking a hole in about 6 to 8 inches deep on a 7-inch checker. And that's really helped take out our compaction issues from manure tanks, and I feel like it helps get the calcium down in, and the rest of the nutrients. So we feel like that gets the oxygen in to the soil, and we feel like there's a good uptick. It helps everything out. Nitrogen wise, Stephen was talking about that. And I went to a meeting here last week, was talking about nitrogen and and I can't tell you the terminology, but what they was using for a chart to how much nitrogen for the corn or for your acre you could use and stuff, and they was like, we'd like you to play with these numbers, but we don't see it working. And and anyway, I'm kind of like, I didn't tell them, but my nitrogen's amounts at or below the numbers they was talking. And my agronomist, or fellow, I guess seed salesman, I should call him agronomist, he always tells me I'm not putting enough nitrogen out there for the corn, but for some reason the next year he asked me if I'll do another corn silage plot. So I guess figure that one out. I'm a little crazy, but I take my manure credits, my hay credit, lagoon credits, and then I'll add nitrogen 28% as a or a wide drop, I guess I should call it. To get to about 120 to 30 units of nitrogen is the way we've been doing it the last several years here.
Hey, Daniel, Jim Hobeisen, tell these guys, what kind of dirt you've got and, discuss the slope a little bit. For flatlanders like me, it's kind of interesting. Now the boys in Lancaster County, that'd just be old hat, but kind of talk about what kind of soil you have and, where how you're viewing the calcium with the clay and organic matter content you've got.
So, yeah, we would have a silt loam, silt clay would be our dominant soil type. Ridges are normally rocky, hillsides are better, depending on who farmed in the last 60 years. And traditional no-till programs, I've seen a lot of wash-in issues. We like cover crops. Keep more roots in the system, rotate hay through to help that. 20 years ago, a lot of it would have been contour stripped. Seems like it's going away from that in the area. Let's see, I forget your other question. So.
The slope of the land.
Oh yeah, slope. Well, a lot of 10 to 15% stuff would be what we're farming. Get on to something that's around 18, and I'm ready to get off of it. So there would, we'd have ridge. We don't hardly have any ridge ground that we farm, but you'd get, in the five plus, I guess. So really rolling, a lot of smaller fields, and I guess that's kind of the way it is here in this area. So,
So what crops are you raising, Daniel?
I've been running. We've been running corn silage, some high moisture corn, and alfalfa normally, some grass hay. Once in a while we'll do sorghum Sudan. Last 3 years we've been playing with double cropping soybeans after we chop off wheatweed or rye. Feel like we've been successful at that. Definitely not going to quit. When you look at what you can make for a forage and then turn around and make some beans too, it works real nice into the rotation. So
yeah, that's what are you using for the forage in most cases? Same thing all the time. There's a lot of discussion on the in the public domain about guys double cropping. You got the cover crop there, and then take that off for feed, and then go ahead and plant your row crop. What forage do you like, or you're tinkering with different forages?
Well, here on our operation, we've been just running bin run wheat the last several years as a cover crop, just playing a little heavier for where we're going to want to chop it off. Not necessarily because, well, it is a management issue. I harvest with my father-in-law, brother-in-laws, and they normally plant rye and triticale, and then we plant wheat. So it gives us about a 10 to 14 day window for harvesting. So, wheat don't mature as quick as rye. It seems like rye, you can make a lot or you can make nothing off of it. Triticale, it's a hybrid between rye and wheat, so it's a little slower maturing, about a week slower than rye. Has been our experience. And then wheat's about a week later. Normally comes in right behind alfalfa. So, first crop alfalfa. So it just spreads things out, spreads the risk out a little bit. So we work with all of it.
What do you do, Daniel? Like you go in and you chop that forage off and, you bag it, I assume, or you put it in a pile. Then do you go plant right away, or do you burn it off, or do you plant and then burn it off? How do you do that?
We've been chopping it off. Normally, seems like the way it's been working is you mow it one day, and then within 2 days it's chopped off, and then I go plant it and let it green up a little bit before I spray it. This last year, or this, 23, we didn't have any rain from the middle of May till the end of June, and I think we chopped off the wheat right there at the end of May, so the ground was dry and hard, and we went ahead and put the beans in. About 2.5 inches deep, I guess. I had to fiddle with the planter to get that deep, but we got them down there. And they laid in there for about 3 weeks before they germinated. So, but they came up and we made a crop. So, it was all over the board. We came in with an average about 40, I guess. According to combine, we didn't haul any of them to town. We're actually roasting and feeding them. So,
I guess so. Is that your normal protocol? In other words, you chop and then plant and then burn?
Yeah, like I said, I only have done this. Well, I've only done the double crop 2 years. We kind of fell into that by default, I guess, or changing plans in stride. But it worked really good the first year and made us start thinking, and so then we ran some beans just due to rotation. They was just straight beans the following year, and then this last year we planned on double cropping them, and we did, and then we didn't get much rain. To the rain thing, I've been hearing, on the corn from planting to harvest was about 4 inches of rain is what I've been hearing for this area.
Wow.
So not very much, or it didn't feel like very much. A lot of tenth, half a tenth, 300ths.
That forage, the forage that you make off of that, do you feel that's good feed?
It's good heifer feed. We need to work at trying to get a little bit more protein into it. I'd like to get a little more protein content in it. Some say, well, just pour the nitrogen to it. I guess I've been a little reluctant on that to this point, but I'm thinking about playing a little bit next year or this spring.
I think if you do add a little more nitrogen to it. Just make sure that your calcium numbers are reasonably good, because I think then the nitrogen will turn into protein a little bit. But if the calcium level's low and you pour the N to it, it's just going to be free nitrate in the plant, and that's not going to give you a whole lot of feed. So,
All right. Thank you, Stephen. Thanks, Daniel, for coming on, and Jim, as usual, thank you. Our next call is, hold on a sec. There we go, on February 8th, again at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you, everybody, for listening in, and have a good night.
Well, you too.